That's kind of strange that you mentioned that, because a friend of mine who he was like a good friend of mine. I've known him for 40 years. This morning I heard he's doing pretty bad, and I haven't talked with him in a long time, and I just reached out to him the last couple months, and I was just like, I love you, brother. I love, please get, and he kind of gives me a thumbs up, and I was just thinking to myself, I was going, you know what? I know when if I get a message from Ian Mackay and he's telling me, he's like, we never met, but I kind of respect you and I like you. I know I'm gonna die like really soon. It's like it's like, why are all these people reaching out to me and telling me how much they love me? And it's like, oh, that's why I'm soon to shuffle off.
Yeah, yeah. I understand completely. Um, yeah, there was some. I moved out here to Raleigh, North Carolina, where I've lived since 1986, but I grew up in Southern California. And then, like a couple of days ago, this guy that I spent a lot of time with in those formative years of being a young adult and being able to escape your family and live on your own and just have no responsibilities or anything, and just, mid 80s, I guess. He died in his sleep, and I haven't seen him in like ages, whatever, but everything, just went right back to those moments of just, because like now, since we're older, that stuff happens a lot more, and it's like, oh, you better get used to this because this is how it's going to be for the rest of our until it's our turn, and which is kind of, is it makes me realize that when you talk to like your grandparents or somebody like that, when somebody dies, they're so used to it because it's like, oh, that's too bad, like it's like this everyday normal thing, somebody in their age bracket dying, and like, oh, that's too bad, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, what's on television now, or whatever. So
Yeah, it's that's why they say death and taxes, because it's the only thing that's really for real.
yeah. But anyway, I want to thank you for talking to me. I've been a fan since of Poison Ideas since I think when I first got into punk rock music, I was aware of Flipside and Maximum Rock and Roll, and I think when Maximum Rock and Roll very first started, there was an interview with Poison Idea. So this is after Pick Your King came out. This had to be like right afterwards, And I got the record, and I've been a fan since, and I've just kind of kept up with everything that you've done, and the band has done when the band's around and not whatever. So this is actually a really big deal. So thanks for doing that.
Of course. I to throw it back, I've always been a fan of your artwork, and it always surprises me because I think of your artwork as kind of like playing in a cover band where you show, like, I'll see, you do the Black Flag stuff or you do the Chuck Biscuit stuff or whatever, and I'm like, oh, that's cool, and then you'll throw something out there like I don't know, some like Venom or something, and I'm like, wow, it's like a new, this got Cats into Venom too, and so you can tell your influences, what you like, by who you're drawing and stuff. And to me, it's like, any kind of, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, and it's just like you can get the same type of feeling from looking at that as you can from hearing a song or something.
Well, thanks. Yeah, like punk rock was like the place where I could put my creative endeavors, I guess, because I didn't, like most people getting into that stuff, I didn't really have any friends. I didn't fit in, all that crap that everybody, says. So I would get really into the music, and that would just sort of make me want to, I was a fan, so it just made me want to draw stuff. And I used to be like a big letter writer, pen pal person in the 80s, because I was like, oh, well, I don't have any friends really, so here's a way I can meet people that, like-minded people, whatever. So I became a massive pen pal person, and I don't have any of that stuff anymore. All the letters and stuff, I wish I did. I wasn't one of those people that saved everything, and I really wish because
Sure.
Obviously you must still do somewhat of the same thing because you're always mailing stuff out. So I'm sure you're no stranger to punk rock mail correspondence. then and some of that stuff now, and getting stuff in the mail and being excited about getting stuff like, oh wow, cool. There's still a little thrill about getting something in the
Sure.
mail, even though it's 40 years later. It's still the same kind of excitement. Like, oh yeah, I like getting stuff. But instead of mangled demos of things like, oh, here's a cassette of brutal judicial truth, youth or whatever, and then you fight like, oh, then you make 8 copies for your buddies.
Oh yeah.
There was always one person that did all that stuff, and where I lived, I was, you know. So, thanks
did
for
you
acknowledging
yeah
my.
sorry, when you were writing, when you were doing that, did you like you were on the East Coast then when you were doing that, or were you in California?
I was in Southern California. I started writing letters like in 1983, but I wasn't even able to go to a punk show because I didn't drive. You can't really get away with not driving in Southern California. In
Oh
some
yeah.
places probably could. So I went to my first show toward the end of that year, and I already had stuff printed and like Flipside and Maximum Rock and Roll, and I just drew what I imagined it would be like to go to a show. That's why everybody's all happy and stuff. I didn't really grasp the full reality of the experience. Like
Uh,
the guy in a leather jacket passed out in his own vomit with a GBH logo on it or something like that. Like I didn't really, I didn't really come from that sort of thing. So then when I started going to shows, it was somewhat what I imagined in my head, but not, obviously not quite. And in Los Angeles, there was all that Olympic auditorium kind of crap, and 5,000 people showing up from in the worst part of Los Angeles to see usually some English band being flown over.
yeah.
Yeah. So, but that was it. It was just I was just a fan, and I still remain a fan even if I'm not. I don't really go to shows or do any of that stuff for the most part.
Yeah.
Sometimes, but almost, especially now with the whole pandemic thing. So,
But it's the music. It's the music, and that's cool that you're still, down with Melvins and Red Cross and the heavy
I mean,
hitters.
the music's everything. It's like I still get just excited listening to something and drawing something based on just being excited about it. So even if I'm not supporting the scene or whatever, I'm still, like you posted that thing about the Craig Smith album, and like to me, if you like something and you think it's good, then it's good. It doesn't matter what it is. Like it doesn't matter if it's this category or that category. There's either good music or bad music, and that Craig Smith record's really fucking good, and that story is
Yeah.
really hard too. His story. Yeah. That Mike Stacks guy did a book about him. That guy.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen it, but it's really good. It's really
Yeah.
kind of sad, but
Yeah. He wrote, you know what? He hand wrote a letter uh, to Terry from Music Millennium here in Portland. And when Terry gave me this gift, he had the letter was tucked in it. And so I got the letter from him, and I was like, "Do you want?" He's like, "Oh, just keep it. You're a fan. Just go ahead and keep it." I was like, "Wow, it's great."
well, the primary reason I thought it'd be good to talk to you is because you have like a collection of 3 books that I guess either they're getting ready to come out or they just have come out. Um, and it's like 3 chapters, and I guess you just wrote about your life or just a memoir or whatever. How did that come about, and why is that coming out now? If you don't mind.
Um, well, it was. I'll tell you the whole story. There was a person in Portland used to live here years ago, Adam Parfrey from Feral House.
Yeah, I know the name.
Yeah, and him and me were friends. We did some stuff together on SWAT and some stuff on AMRAP. Just we worked together. He was a great guy, and he was kind of out there, and so we were pals. And we would drive around, and I would tell him stuff like, "Oh, that corner over there, that's where this happened," or blah blah, this and that. And when I was a little kid, we used to do this, and he would just be blown away by these stories. And he said, "Well, you need to write that stuff down, and I'll put it out on Feral House." So I was like, "Sure." And this was years ago. So we signed the contract, and I sat down and started writing these stories. And took years to do. I mean, we kept revising it, and then he moved, and I continued to do it, and then I got turned onto the internet because I was really slow getting on social media. I just shunned it. I wouldn't do it, and there was some kind of misunderstanding. This was about 4 years ago. There was some kind of misunderstanding on social media with somebody getting blocked or something, and we got kind of a fallout. And he said, he's like, well, he's like, take your book and go somewhere else. And I was like, well, and we were friends for years. And I was like, Adam, what's going on? And he's like, no, I'm serious. I can't do this. And so I went and found an entertainment lawyer and had him give my contract back because I didn't want something happening down the road where he said, well, you still have a contract to me. And he just goes, I release you from your contract. I have nothing to do with it anymore. And then about a week later, he had a stroke and fell down some stairs and died. And I was like, shit. And the word got back to me that he was really upset about us, our fallout and stuff. And so I was like, well, you know what? I'm not going to let this. I want this to come out. And I want to dedicate it to Adam. And so I contacted a couple of publishers, and like the third one I hit in LA, Rare Bird, they looked at it and said, yeah, we'll put this out. And so that was like 2 years ago. And the thing is, it was the end kept changing because that's the thing about writing. It's an ongoing story. As long as you're not, because you're still alive, you're still writing.
As long as you're still here.
Yeah. So I kind of gave it a ending when I was with Tom, and I was, and Tom passed, and I was in the room with him. I was kind of like, this is the end of the story. And then more crazy things happened in my life, and I was like, like I said earlier, I wanted to just state the facts. It was kind of like Rashomon. I wanted to say, everybody sees this thing happening. I wanted to my side of it. This is the way I saw it. Yeah. And because like when Tom passed too, people were like, oh, I saw him once, throw a refrigerator through a window and blah, blah, and all this stuff. And I was like, that never happened. That never happened. And they're like, no, I saw it.
He bench pressed the refrigerator while he just drank a.
Exactly. So I was like, so I just said, this is the way I saw things, and this is the way it happened. And that's take it or leave it.
Yeah. I think I read another interview a couple of days ago that you did where you said that part of the reason also for doing this was that you had heard so much stuff that people had said about not just Tom, but the reputation of the band and the fact that you guys, had excessive personalities and did whatever you wanted to do. And you just said that, every time that stuff comes up, I just hear all these things that apparently happened that didn't happen at all. And like even just the other day or a week ago, I wrote something about the band and put it up there and started getting stories about Poison Idea and what apparently you guys did or what somebody did. And it kind of seemed like to some degree that even though half of the people really liked the band and it was the music and just the brute force of the band and how good the band was, that was the main thing. But for some people, it seems like it was the extracurricular activities that people kind of brought up instead of just, Kings of Punk, pick your king, feel the darkness, just, the music alone, and you said that, well, when it's my turn to go, there's going to be all these people that are probably going to be saying, silly stuff like that. So you said that was another reason why you wanted to write all this stuff down and get it out there. Is that fair enough?
Oh, sure. Well, yeah, that's always weird with, I mean, I really don't know any other bands where people, the image overshadows the music. It's like we would have reviews of our records and the review would just be about how fat we were. That's what they would never say anything about the music,
Right.
So, right. Yeah.
Look, three of these guys are really big. Look at that.
Yeah, exactly. And how, yeah.
Instead of the music itself. So, Are the books actually out?
What's today? Thursday. Yeah, they came out 2 days ago.
Okay. Placed an order a couple days ago. Um, so was it
Yeah.
cathartic? Was it cathartic to write all that stuff down?
Oh yeah, yeah. It was, you know what? It was kind of like being kind of like what they say when somebody like when a criminal gets caught and he confesses his crime, they always know by the one who's sleeping, the one who's relaxed and sleeping, that's the one who is guilty because he knows he's caught and he confesses and then it's all over. The people who are innocent are like wondering what's next and like I shouldn't be here. But it was like that. It was like once I confessed everything, I felt like yeah, it was over. I was like, and people are like, well, this one time I saw you, blah blah blah. I go, yeah, I know, I wrote about that. I said that, I said it. What about when you stole this or this? I was like, I already said I'm sorry. What do you want?
I heard that you did this. What do you have to say about it? Well, yeah, I did it. That was what, 30 years ago, whatever. No?
Yeah, and that's the thing too. It's like it's like a atonement kind of confessional, and it's like there's a lot of stuff that I said, yeah, I wasn't too proud of what I did, so
And you live to tell the tale.
that's right. The cynic, he who sins and runs away lives to sin another day, right?
Right, right. Um, well, cool. I'm definitely looking forward to checking those out for sure. I wanted to ask you about your lyric writing because, like, right away I could tell, especially since I was a know nothing dumb kid getting these records for the first time, I couldn't help but notice that your lyrics right out the gate seem to be kind of a little higher up in quality than some of our contemporaries. Like it seems like a lot of thought went into it, and like my knee-jerk reaction to thinking that was that I knew right away that you guys were totally into the Germs, and I would have to imagine, especially since some of the records are named at Darby Crash Rides Again, that the Germs and Darby Crash lyrically must have been a huge influence on you as they were for most people, because his lyrics are clearly,
Oh yeah,
like as much as I love Black Flag, and I love Black Flag very much lyrically, it's sort of a base instinct kind of like smash stuff up, and um
spray
the
paint the
cops
walls.
suck, but that's the way it kind of spray paint the wall. Yeah, yeah. But we was Darby Crash a primary influence on you in those early days for lyric writing, or were you already reading weird, interesting authors of people that I wouldn't even think about for another 10 years? Like,
Well, no, I mean, of course we were into the Germs, and I mean, we had to have a thesaurus to when we were listening to the Germs. We were like, what is he talking about? We're like, wow, where's this guy coming from? But at the same time, we were honestly listening to the first Pink Floyd record, and we were just like laughing our heads off at Sid Barrett's. Like, this is just crazy. This is so we would kind of try to not so much take the piss and make a joke, but we would try, we would do the same thing. We'd try to be like Sid Barrett meets Darby Crash meets, Arthur Lee, and we would just make these crazy, it's like whatever. It's a song should be, even if it's a 30-second song, it should be a big 3-hour motion picture itself. It tells a story and it paints the picture and it shows, it makes your mind just go, and any song can do that, like something like how much art can you take, and then you can just think about that, like just like, wow, that's heavy, how much art can you take? You're just it's like that's really deep, man. I could just see somebody just contemplating, standing there, just even those those couple words, one line. It's just songs should do that, and that's what we were. The Germs, yeah, they definitely put a lot of spice on it, and that's help the medicine go down. That's for sure.
definitely, definitely. Did you ever see the Germs in your?
No, no. I mean, you know what? I was I played in a band with this guy that was from LA in the early 80s. And some people went down to see that show at the Starwood on December. And they came back. And I remember I was at this club and these guys came back and they couldn't wait to tell us that Darby died. They're like, Darby Crash died. Everybody was, whatever at that time. But, when kids don't, they're used to that kind of like Sid, Darby's like, another one. It's like, what, who's got the beer? And, but I remember that happening. And I remember, because I remember buying Tooth and Nail and just thinking it sounded like something from another planet. The Germs album was really good, but Tooth and Nail it still does. It sounds like a dub record or something. It's like really the sound on it is just so crazy. But of course we were Germ fans, when that happened. And then later we played with the Germs part, whatever, 5 with Shane West. We played with those guys. So that was kind of, so we got to hang out with and ask, all these questions.
Ask questions.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I did that too. The Gun Club played here in the 80s, and I snuck into the club because I wasn't 21, and I was drinking in the bathroom, and Jeffrey Lee Pierce came in, and he's like, "Oh, is that Old English?" And I was like, "Yeah." So we sat and drank beer together, and I just picked his brain for like half hour. So we used to always do that with anybody from LA,
Oh yeah, but like being so excited about music and stuff that you would show up early to watch people sound check because you just I gotta be there. I gotta watch these guys sound check for whatever reason and force myself upon them and introduce myself and that kind of thing.
Oh yeah. Well, I'd go to shows that I knew I wouldn't get in because that was like they were at bars and we'd go just hang outside just to listen to it and be a part of it. You could feel the energy from exactly. So yeah, that's dedication.
That's right. When do you remember exactly when Pick Your King first came out? Was that early '83?
Yeah, I believe so.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite hardcore 7-inch. I think I decided. So thanks for that. I still get the same sort of charge from hearing that as a 56-year-old than I did when I was 18. And you guys always put out your own records until a certain point, or Tom did, right? Like, except did Kings of Punk come out through Pusshead?
Yeah, yeah. Because we were friends with Pusshead. He came through a bunch of times, and we'd go to Boise, and he had his finger on the pulse. He was putting out records. He was doing a lot of really good records. That label the first couple of years was hitting. So
Finds the bacteria.
Oh yeah, yeah. But yeah, we I think I don't know, I knew of the Desperate Bicycles 7-inch. I knew that thing where they basically showed you how to make a record. And but it was it was kind of like all the people at Discord did too. You take a record, you look at it, find out where it's taken apart, see how they glued the seams, and we would have parties and we would fold and staple. It was a lot of trial and error. We messed up a lot of sleeves, and we went about it the really hard way, so it would take 15 minutes we made one record, and we had like 500 of them we had to just keep. So
yeah, you have to organize everything on a table or whatever. Here, you do this part, and then you do this part, and then 4 hours later we'll have 20 records or something like that.
Yeah, it's a great experience. I mean, kids, I don't know, these days just downloading something on a Spotify or whatever, it's a different world, and it's a organic world, and it's really great to be part of that back then.
Yeah, we have the for better or for worse, we have the experience of actually growing up before social media and existing before social media, and how utterly foreign that seems now. Like, I can't believe that we actually lived without the internet, but we did, and we did just fine. And
Yeah.
There's definitely like for better or for worse, I'm not against the internet. I mean, I would never be able to do what I'm doing now without the benefit of that, so I can't really complain too much, but there is definitely a difference in how people do things and how people view a lot of things, even down to just music, So, and, I did cancel my Spotify actually, but I showed great restraint. Like everybody has to let you know. Here's my opinion on this. Here's this is what I think. It's like I don't care what you think. I don't know if I even care what I think. Like,
Well, let me ask you: did you ever, when you had Spotify, did you ever pull up Neil Young on it? Play Neil Young ever?
yes.
Oh wow!
And then after the Neil Young Joe Rogan thing, I was like, it's kind of hypocritical for me to you know to be a part of that. So maybe we should actually take a stand and maybe not talk about it, but just actually do it and not talk about how we're going to do it. Does that make sense?
Sure. Well, you know what? Now that I think about it, now that I've never really thought about it, but now that I thought about it for a second, people have sent me links for podcasts, for whatever, music, record collecting, shows, history of this and that, and they're on Spotify, but I just pull them up and listen to the old shows from a year ago or whatever, but I don't subscribe to it. I mean, by me doing that, am I supporting Spotify when I pull up old shows and listen to?
I guess it depends on how far you want to take these things. That's the thing that like I try to be open-minded about everything, and especially with internet culture and how that stuff is, how like people live to I call these people injustice collectors, people that just go around finding every injustice that they can collect and making people aware of it, and trying to get people in trouble and stuff like that. And there's kind of a slippery slope, and it seems like the hardest thing it is for people to do these days is to not chime in every 5 seconds about something, which I'm guilty of, myself, obviously, but it's just kind of a weird time. So to actually take a stand on something, because you're obviously on the internet for business and stuff, and pleasure and stuff. So you see how these things go. This news generates, and it's outrageous news that exists for 48 hours, and then the story's gone completely. It's just like you're constantly fed all this stuff, like you're expected to react to it and get enraged or whatever. And as long as you click on that link, someone's making money down the road. And that's a pretty good assessment of the last couple of years that we've lived through since this whole pandemic stuff started. It's like this treadmill of injustice and outrage, and some of it for sure is necessary, but then it just seems like restraint's a really hard thing for all that.
Well, you know what? Thinking about that, sitting here thinking about that right now, I just came up with an idea, and this is how great ideas. This is how things come to fruition.
Okay.
I was thinking about what you were saying, and an idea of a podcast came up to me called Shot by Both Sides. And the theme song, of course, is Shot by Both Sides. And you start off, it's a live interaction so people can comment on your podcast. And you start off with one opinion, like, you come on there and you go, well, of course, all cops are bastards. You know that. And then somebody will come on and say, well, what about blah, blah. And then you're like, well, yes, but well, not all cops are bastards. And then, but you go back and forth. You're just really wishy-washy. You're just trying to cater to your audience. And everybody's just screaming at you, and you're trying to go back and forth, but you just keep digging yourself in a deeper hole. So by the time you're done, you've went all over the map and you've said everything, but you stood up for anyone, you've just said, and everybody hates you.
You never committed to one side or the other.
Right. But really adamant and really driven about, just like they should be killed and they should just scream and then just go, well, I don't know. I think fuck those people, and just really get on and just, just really rave, but just go back and forth and back and forth. So everybody just, no matter what you do.
Yeah. And then you walk away with this great online persona of the guy that wouldn't commit, the
Yeah,
rebel route. That's a good
confuse and
idea.
conquer. Confuse and conquer.
Yeah, yeah. I think what I've realized in the last couple of years is that people just demand to be categorized, and they want to label themselves. It's down to teens, like in all facets of life, especially lately, and with the pandemic, and you know,
Politics.
I think so. I think people just demand to be categorized, and also I noticed that you can't take something that somebody says and go, well, you know, I agree with that, and then maybe something else the same person would say, you might go, well, I don't agree with that. It seems like it's an all or nothing kind of scenario. Like you can't be in the middle and just go, well, I agree with that. I don't agree with that. And that drives people fucking crazy, you know, for whatever reason. It's like, it's weird. It's just crazy, you know, and that totally is what I keep thinking about how the last couple of years have turned into, like socially and just, you know, culturally. I'm kind of going off on a tangent, and I didn't really mean to, but
No, it's fine. That's what people do. It's when you talk. It's all everything's connected. So it makes sense. I know exactly what you're talking about.
all that stuff. Life is really complex, and there's so much stuff. It's just hard to really reduce things down to just this thing and that thing, and you're either on my side or you're on my. It's like reading a really bad Maximum Rock and Roll letter section. Well, here's what I think punk rock is. Well, us punks. It's like, oh, fuck all that, you know.
Sure. You know what? As far as like this side or that side, I'm I can see good things on both ends and I can see bad things on both ends. And I kind of stand like a moderate, but there's no such thing as moderation anymore. And you know, like I say, I can see it there needs to be a balance. There definitely needs to be a balance.
Yeah, they're definitely. You know, the pendulum swings one way, history shows, and then the pendulum swings it back another way, and that's just I don't know. And people react to these situations like it's the first time it's ever happened, and that's also weird. I didn't know what the word pandemic meant before all this started, so I immediately I better look that up. And then you remember those things called encyclopedias and dictionaries that used to that were written that have no bias. You know, there's no conspiracy theory behind it. It's like you look up what a pandemic is in the encyclopedia, and there it is. There's
Yep.
everything you need to know. So you can react to that and just, you know, go from there. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Non-stop sorts of amusement or bemusement. I can't figure out which one. Um, anyway, getting back to you and Poison Idea. Why did the band part ways with your original rhythm section of Dean Johnston and Chris Tentz, I believe is his name?
Yeah.
I know this is ancient history, but
No, it's cool. It's you know what? We put that record out on Pussmore, and then we went back and did like Bill's Kick on our label. I think that was Shitpool Records. And then we went back and did something on whatever. We would bounce back and forth, you know, we did like Alchemy, and then we would do American Leather. Then we would go back to we would start these labels. So we're still kind of doing that now. I mean, you know, even though we're not really recording any music, we're still, you know, American Leather is still up and running. But yeah, we bounced around. But as far as Dean and Chris, we were pretty comfortable with that lineup, and we were doing good. And Dean and Chris were in another band at the time. I kind of reckon it to how once again the Germs connection. When the Germs were playing, and Don Bowles was in was it Vox Pop?
Vox Pop.
Yeah, and Darby was kind of yeah. It was kind of like that because Dean and Chris were in this other band. At that time, they were called Mule, and not like to be, you know, not to be confused with the other Mule. Yeah, but and these guys were they were actually a good band, but we were like, what are you guys doing in this other band? You need to commit to this, and they were like, no, we're in this band, and they were putting a lot of their focus and attention into this band, and they were playing and they were competing with us, and we just said we brought him over and said it's either this or that, and Dean said I'm not going to quit Mule, and he's like, you want me to pick up my drums? And I was like, yeah, pick up, get out of here, and Hanford was right there. He was at that time he was roadieing for us, and he was kind of being devil's advocate. He was like, yeah, I'm better than Dean. You need to get rid of him. And we're like, hey, get this kid in there. He says, whatever. It's like, I don't care. I write the songs anyway. It's just whoever plays them. I don't give a shit.
They were both really good drummers.
Oh yeah, they were. They were.
Unquestionably. And I think Chris stuck around for the Victor Alchemy, your experience with Alchemy Records, which I'm sure was a super fruitful. And I've heard the Melvins guys tell me their experience with Alchemy Records. But Alchemy put out a lot of pretty cool stuff and just evaporated or whatever. And then Chris was gone after the Alchemy record, and then he just brought in various people, Mondo, and who's the guitar player that came back in the latter years? Eric?
Yeah.
Wow.
Olson. We you know what? It was like I've said before in talking to people, there was a time when it was like the Ramones, the Brothers, the Friends, all went to high school together to start being, we need somebody who can play. Oh, I know this guy in Seattle, have him come down, or this. It's like I don't know, band. It's like it reminds me of LA bands because those people never know each other and they just keep, put an ad out in the paper and they bring whoever's the best. And that's kind of when Poison Idea stopped being a brother band and started being a, that kind of
band. So you would say that maybe the Field of Darkness lineup and era, even though it was not rooted in brotherhood, that was still a formidable period and a formidable album. And isn't that when that record came out, isn't that when you guys first started trying to tour on the East Coast, and eventually you went to Europe and started going there for a little bit of time? That's how did Poison Idea tour? Because I heard rumors of you guys touring. I know you went up to New York, but I feel like I heard a story that you guys actually played in Charlotte, North Carolina once. And I was like, oh man. And it was after Field of Darkness came out. I was like, well, I really want to see that. And then I never heard anything about it. Did you guys tour before Field of Darkness, or was it after that when the record got attention and things solidified more? That's my outsider perspective of my perception of the band, I guess. Did that stuff happen after that record came out?
Well, we wrote some of Field of Darkness on that one East Coast tour when we played the Pyramid Club and the City Gardens, and we did that tour whenever that was, and so then we came back and did Field of Darkness, and then once that happened, then we were going down to California like every couple months, and we would go to but the thing about touring was when we were just hanging out in Portland, all we were doing was just hanging out, drinking, listening to music, and getting fucked up and partying. And why should we stop that when we go on the road? And so though we're supposed to be working and play, I think it's called work, and we just took it on the road, and so every day was a party, and it was nonstop. So right. and that continued until we started getting in more heavy into drugs and stuff, and then eventually it was that took over, and that was which came first was the drugs, and that's when it was pretty fucked up, because then you had to do that first before you could play. Before it was like, whatever we do today, we have to play, and then whatever comes, we'll let it happen. But then once we got into the hard drugs, it was like, we need to do the drugs every day. Then maybe we can play. Then maybe we can sleep. then maybe we can do this. But first, this is the first thing, and that's when it just was shitty. That was when it was horrible.
Right.
Yeah, we were kind of fooling around with it. We were staring into the abyss a little bit, kind of peeking under the curtain, but we weren't engulfed in it fully yet. And then yeah, it was like Feel the Darkness. Sure, we were, I mean, we were blowing our brains out on this East Coast tour. Even before that, we were still, we're like, oh wow, New York City is like, you can buy heroin on the streets. This is great. So yeah, it was, yeah, we were always,
Have
we
a
were we were
have a good time.
yeah, we were getting ready. We didn't see the writing on the wall, but we were dancing close to the edge.
Yeah. The one thing I always thought was really interesting. I think I brought this up at the very beginning of this when we signed on here to do this. Was that I always thought, as far as the music that Poison I did that's about as good as you're going to get for that style of music. Like, if you want to label it punk rock or hardcore or whatever you want to call it, as far as the delivery and the material and the quality of the songs, to me, like Feel the Darkness and Kings of Punk and even Pick Your King and Hangover Heartattack, that song, 4 a.m., all that stuff, like that's like, to me, that's Laughing Boy. Oh man. To me, that's as good as it's gonna get for that style of music. I'm not trying to sound
No,
but there was like this intelligence to it, which is why I brought up the lyrical quality of just how you always wrote lyrics. And then after a while, I noticed that, like I said before, people would just sort of kind of chime in on stuff that really had nothing to do with the music. And did that sort of overshadow, like you said, that eventually the partying got out of control? But was that ever frustrating when people would just kind of like focus more on how much the band laid and how much you could drink instead of the music? Or did you ever get that sense that, or did that even ever happen? Because that was sort of my perception. It was like nobody ever really talked about the music. Did you experience any of that?
sure, it was, disappointing, but that's, it just gives us fuel to write in, the next song about how disappointed we are in the human race. It's like people, we're like, we made this big great piece of art, and we're just like again, these people, really. And it's like
Yeah.
what do we expect? What do you expect? Yeah, well, it's like a lot of like people, like journalists and stuff, who review records, and they can't describe the feeling they're getting. Well, this it sounds like Black Oak, Arkansas, and the second song, it sounds like, Nazareth, where they don't really go, they come up with a boogie woogie southern. They can't describe. They just compare it to other things, and that's
Yeah.
kind of what we were. That's kind of what we were getting a lot too. It's like, these guys, it's more personal, and so you don't take it seriously.
Right. Because the climate was Fugazi, or it was straight edge hardcore, or it was crossover had happened, and it was right before all that, when bands figured out that they could sell lots of records and sound like
Yeah, right.
Bad Religion and all that stuff, and that never had existed. It's not a knock on any of that stuff. It's just kind of like you said, different tribes and different times and different attitudes. But it's really funny, how that just kind of shifted, and then grunge happened and all that stuff. And I think for me, that's like the last era of music that I actually remember. I don't remember anything that happened afterwards. Like the last 20 years, I can't attach anything to it. It's just all one big stream. Where the 70s or the 80s or the 90s, there's things that happen where I can, oh yeah, well the 80s, that was when I came of age. The 90s, that was this. And now it's like this flat line, just going through, which is fine. Maybe I had
Yeah.
my time.
Well, no, I mean, I don't know if there will be another big youth movement like punk rock in our lifetime. I mean, it was
I
It
don't
was,
think. I
you
mean,
know,
it's not up to me to say, but
well, I'm always looking for it. I'm always, you hear about it every 6 months that people are like, this is the new, and as much as I try to really love it, I'll take it in and try to, some of the stuff I find, like Sleaford mods. I think that's pretty cool. I'm just like, wow, these guys are really, they're kind of, but some of it, when people tell me, they tell me like, this is the shit. This is the shit, like whatever it is. If it's a bunch of kind of, I don't know, whatever. I'm not gonna start
no,
making.
I know what you're saying. Well, we made it so far in this chat, and I haven't brought up the Ian McKay record. And have you ever given an interview where you didn't have to talk about that? Because we can just skip that. Probably never.
No,
Huh? Have you
no,
ever?
you know what? No, I've never met him. The last one, who was I talking to? Fuck, I forgot. I forgot who I was talking to, and I said, I've kind of got to the point where, I understand, what we were doing at that time, but and it was in humor. It was all in humor. Nothing was,
Oh yeah,
none was mean. But you know what? If there was a time where even for a couple minutes, if it made Ian MacKaye feel really bad and he was upset by it and it actually made him feel upset, then what we did was wrong. And that shouldn't have, it's like there's no reason to do that.
yeah. But at the time also, when you're just kind of a kid and you have that kind of sense of humor, stuff like that happens, and I've done that kind of stuff before too. And then you just don't know how people are going to react to it.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I used to do a lot of really silly cartoons, and I would like in a Mad Magazine style, and I would call people out. But it was all, like you said, it was all done for humor. And then you kind of I realized later on that there was this sort of little secret thrill I would get, like where on one hand, oh, I got attention. I used pen and paper to make, to say something that I thought was really obvious and people thought was funny. Then I would hear down the line that the people I did that to did not have a sense of humor, did not think it was funny. And then I'd have to like pay the price for that, like maybe by seeing some of those people a year later, because it was pre-internet. So, it's not like now everyone's an asshole instantly and
Yeah.
there's conflict instantly. It was like real in-person conflict, but down the road. And I just kind of thought, well, you don't have to think it's funny, but it was all the stuff I did was just done with the sense of humor. One interview I listened to with that guy from Machine Head, you kind of let it be known that a lot of these songs that you wrote lyrically, they're based on true events, which adds a whole other layer to it. So like Alan's on Fire, I did a Bifocal Media shirt with your permission based on what I thought that song, what was going on with that song. And you said in the interview that it was based on a real story. And you're probably going to be explaining this about Alan's on Fire a few more times in your day, but can you explain what Alan's on Fire is about for this podcast?
Yes, this person, David, who is our like manager, driver, for photographer for years, he worked at this box company with this guy named Alan, and he said he was a really nice guy, and he had a bad home life. His wife was very demanding and, I don't know, unloving, if that's the word, but she was, a family of kids who would take and demand, and he, put the screws to poor Alan all the time, and Alan wasn't happy at home, and so one day, I mean, David said it was during Thanksgiving dinner. Everybody came over, the whole family, and Alan walked in the backyard with a can of gasoline and just sat on the yard and poured it over his head, and then just lit himself in front of everybody. So I wrote the song thinking about what was going through his head. I was thinking about how if he could articulate what he was feeling, that intense fucking feeling for somebody to do this to
Yeah,
themselves, what would he be saying? And that's
I,
what I
I have control in this situation for the first time ever. You're going to have to pay attention to this because it's all
Yeah.
about.
I hope you choke while I go up and smoke, you know.
Right. And then the song "Feel the Darkness." Do you mind recapping that story?
No,
One of my favorite
um,
songs.
yeah, I knew this girl in Portland who was she was kind of on the fringes of the scene, and she was a friend of mine, and she started doing drugs, and to support her habit, she started doing like escorts with guys and dates. And around that time, there was this guy. It's weird. The Northwest had a lot of like serial killers. We had the Green River Killer. I mean, we had them all, you know, these little sporadic ones. There were some really, really fucking horrible ones in the East Coast too, you know, really bad ones. But there was a few.
Santa Cruz, California is also a great breeding ground
Oh yeah.
for
Oh
serial for some reason.
yeah, bad ones. And so this guy was one of those guys, and he picked her up, my friend, and you know, she just disappeared off the street. And then
Yeah.
whenever he got caught, they started finding these girls, and she was one of the girls, and he fucked her up really bad. He tortured her and stuff. You know, that's the thing. It's like one thing, you know, like I'm not saying that you justify or makes it better to, you know, to shoot somebody than whether to burn them alive or whatever, but it's still atrocity is an atrocity. But
Yeah.
but she was, yeah, he kept her alive for a while, and it was pretty fucked.
Oh,
And so yeah, that's what I was just like, yeah. Hopefully, you know what, stuff like that happens, and you're thinking in your head, you're like, well, you know, her adrenaline was going, and she thought that she didn't feel anything. She was, you know, and you try to, you know, but you know deep down inside that, yeah, that must have been fucking horrible.
fuck yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, you know, all of our songs were just us screaming, just screaming in pain for what we, you know, our life, just rolling on the ground screaming. And
Okay, the last song is which has my favorite coda is "Death of an Idiot Blues," where you say, "Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad. I'll see you in hell."
see, well,
What?
that right there, that's the perfect example. I mean, only a child would say something like that. You an adult would never say anything like that. It's like a screaming mad child saying something like that. That's just like just like anger just exploding. And that's what, you know what, and that's what makes, if it makes Poison Idea so pure like that, that that's what it really is. It's the basic, just raw, you know, like I
Emotion.
said, yeah, and with no thought, no, like what's going to happen tomorrow. What if we put this out? It's just like, let's do it, just like impulse. And that's
Right.
what yeah.
Which I imagine part of you writing those books served a purpose for like documenting the rage and the time and those feelings and also might be similar to Poison Idea. Just it's I guess it's done, right? You had this final hurrah, final go around. You did that last record, and then that was it. That was deliberate, right? Just to put a cap on it, sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I didn't, with the reason, I didn't really understand it until I wrote the book and took a step back and looked at it. And then I could kind of see, I was like, oh, then I kind of understood why this happened, why I did what I did in my life. And the last go around with the band was, I said in the book too, like there was a time when we were just going through the motions just to be get loaded, to be fucked up, and to live that life of just being high all the time. And I thought that it was untruthful, and I felt like I was not ripping people off, but I just felt that you know, people would come to see us, and we would just be fucked up, and it was disappointing. I even told the guys I got, a lot of them were, you know, in Poison Idea at one time or another throughout the years. And I set them down and I said, you know what? I feel really bad that people see us and it's not held up to what we used to be. I go, I want to fucking train and get in shape and get tighter than shit and go out there and just blow the doors off for a year, play as much as we can, and just give back everything, and then just go out on a high note and just, atone, be good. So,
Right. Got it.
and I think we did it. The last year, I can't count, on one hand how many bad shows we played. It was like we were tight. We did for a full year. We did, and so I was really happy with that. And I thought that's good. It's going on a good note. And people now are asking, oh, we have a festival in Europe. We'll give you this much, and like, it's not worth it. And they're like, what about this much? And I was like, no, that's not the point. It's not the point at all. We're not going to do it.
All right. When you were writing your stuff for these 3 books that have just been released, other than just putting everything down and telling your story and just getting it all in place, were there any writers at all that you not reference, but just people that you look up to, as far as I'm going to try to put a little bit of this flavor in some of this stuff? Was there any of that going on at all? Because you seem like you're pretty well read. That's the impression.
Well, you know what? Of course, if I could, I know that some people, some artists like Nick Cave or something will try to be like Shakespeare or try to be biblical and write like the Bible. I would like to do that stuff. If I can't really, I mean, music, I can pretty much mimic and mock any kind of style of music I wanted to do. But writing, it's more of just like, kind of like writing a police report, kind of like a Raymond Chandler thing, kind of just like the way I saw it, just like this is the way it happened, the facts.
Just the facts.
Exactly. And that's the way it kind of comes out.
Well, are you excited about these books coming out? Because as soon as I heard that you were doing that, I was like, oh man, I bet that's going to be well worth picking up. Do you think this is going to lead to some other kind of books, or has it ignited some sort of, oh, maybe I could do more of this and write about different things? Is that something that's crossed your mind?
A couple of people who have read the books all the way through, they've given me some criticism and going, you know what, there's not enough about the shows you played, the band touring. There's not enough about your lyrics, and there's always more stuff I could write about. Who knows? Maybe write a children's book someday. I don't know.
A children's book.
Yeah,
that's cool. Well, if anybody,
since I was regressing with my music and going, I might as well like really regress down to an infant and write about a whole book about the joys of breastfeeding.